This episode is a trackpads.com production.
Welcome to Headline Wednesday from Dispatch U.S. Military History Magazine, developed by trackpads.com. Each week, we take one pivotal moment from United States military history and follow it from the first warning signs to the final outcome. Today, we go to Normandy in the Second World War for the story of the American airborne drop behind Utah Beach. The night sky over Normandy did not look like liberation. It looked like a furnace. As June 5th became June 6th, 1944, columns of C-47 transports droned toward the Cotentin Peninsula, their wings catching the hard flashes of German anti-aircraft fire. Inside the noisy aircraft, paratroopers of the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions stood shoulder to shoulder, loaded with parachutes, rifles, ammunition, demolition charges, radios, rations, and lifebelts. Every burst of flak and every sudden jolt reminded them that there was no going back to England tonight. Below them, Normandy was mostly darkness. Pilots tried to hold their routes toward the drop zones, but searchlights, tracer fire, low clouds, and turbulence broke up formations that had been rehearsed for months. The landscape waiting beneath them was a maze of flooded fields, hedgerows, lanes, and villages. Men who had studied maps and sand tables could see little more than flashes of fire, passing shadows, and the glow of burning farm buildings. The plan had been built on precision, but the night was already turning straight lines into crooked paths. Then the green lights snapped on. One by one, paratroopers stepped into the slipstream. The roar of engines became the hiss of wind, the snap of parachutes, and the distant thump of guns below. Many men landed far from their marked drop zones. Some came down in flooded fields and had to cut themselves free before their gear dragged them under. Others hit hedgerows, orchards, lanes, or farm buildings. Small groups gathered in the dark, traded passwords, checked weapons, and tried to figure out where they actually were. The mission had been planned as a coordinated airborne assault. On the ground, it began as confusion. The airborne drop mattered because the Utah beach landing depended on more than soldiers crossing the sand. Behind the beach was a fragile network of roads, bridges, causeways, and villages that controlled movement inland. German defenders had flooded low ground, fortified strongpoints, and positioned artillery to fire on the exits from the beach. If those exits stayed blocked, the 4th Infantry Division coming ashore at Utah could be trapped between the sea and the German defenses. The airborne divisions were sent in to prevent that. The 101st Airborne Division was assigned to seize and hold the causeways behind Utah Beach, knock out dangerous positions, and secure crossroads that would allow infantry and vehicles to push inland. The 82nd Airborne Division was sent farther north and west to capture key bridges over the Merderet and Douve rivers, hold the high ground around Sainte-Mère-Église, and prevent German counterattacks from cutting into the flank of 7 Corps. On paper, the divisions would land in clear drop zones, assemble by unit, and move toward their objectives. In reality, they would have to fight from wherever the night put them. German forces across the Cotentin Peninsula were uncertain where the main invasion would fall, but they were not helpless. Infantry units, strong points, anti-aircraft positions, coastal batteries, and scattered mobile forces guarded the area. If they reacted quickly, they could hit the beach exits, crush isolated airborne groups, and slow the American landing before it could build strength. That made the night drops critical. Success meant disrupted German response and open routes inland. Failure meant paratroopers cut off in the bocage, and a beach choked with troops and vehicles under fire. American airborne forces had been shaped by earlier hard lessons in North Africa, Sicily, and Italy. Those operations proved that night drops rarely unfolded cleanly. Aircraft drifted, sticks scattered, radios failed, and units were forced to improvise. By the spring of 1944, that experience had produced a force trained to act on intent when plans collapsed. Officers and enlisted men understood that a bridge, road junction, or causeway might matter, even if they reached it with the wrong people and no clear orders. Before the main force arrived, pathfinders jumped in to mark drop zones with radar beacons and visual signals. Some landed close to their assigned areas and set up under enemy fire. Others were scattered by fog, flak, and confusion, separated from equipment or forced to improvise signals. Then the main serials of C-47 transports came in from the sea. Anti-aircraft fire thickened. Pilots climbed, dove, turned away from searchlights, and broke formation to keep their aircraft alive. Those maneuvers saved men, but they also spread the drops far beyond the planned zones. On the ground, the formal structure of companies and battalions dissolved quickly. Men from the 82nd and 101st mixed together in the dark. Groups formed around whoever was present and steady enough to lead, whether a lieutenant, a sergeant, or a private. They counted heads, checked weapons, listened for firing, and tried to match church towers, roads, and hedgerows to memory. The maps often seemed useless at ground level. What mattered was movement toward the mission. German reactions were uneven. Some outposts moved quickly, manning roadblocks, ringing church bells, and setting up machine guns along roads. Others hesitated, unsure whether scattered parachute reports meant a major landing or a diversion. Small American groups hit farmyards, crossroads, telephone lines, culverts, and gun positions. One group might cut communications, another might block a road, another might attack a strong point from an unexpected direction. None of these actions looked decisive alone, but together they began to disrupt the German response. Around Sainte-Mère-Église, elements of the 82nd Airborne fought to secure the town and nearby roads, creating an early anchor for the bridgehead. Along the waterways and flooded low ground, other groups seized or contested bridges that German commanders needed for counterattacks. Closer to Utah Beach, elements of the 101st Airborne moved toward the causeways and exits, attacking positions from the flank or rear. German strongpoints built to fire toward the beach now found themselves threatened from behind. The turning point was not one dramatic assault. It came from dozens of small decisions made in darkness. A stick leader who landed miles from his assigned objective still found a road to block or a bridge to destroy. Sergeants gathered mixed groups from both divisions and turned them into ad hoc patrols. Paratroopers who did not know the full operational picture still understood the larger purpose: protect the beach, disrupt the enemy, and open routes inland. That shared understanding turned scattered landings into useful pressure. The dispersion also confused the Germans. Reports of paratroopists came from many directions, making it difficult for higher headquarters to judge the size and focus of the airborne assault. Some units overestimated the number of Americans behind their lines. Others waited for clearer orders. Cut telephone wires, ambushes, blocked roads, and sudden firefights slowed the movement of reserves. That hesitation gave the 4th Infantry Division landing at Utah Beach valuable time and space. By mid-morning, infantry coming off the beach began linking up with airborne groups in villages, lanes, and hedgerows. By the end of June 6th, the battlefield behind Utah Beach looked nothing like the neat overlays from the planning rooms. Villages and farms had changed hands. Some bridges remained contested. Casualties among the airborne troops were heavy from drownings, bad landings, and close-range fighting. Yet the essential pieces were in place. The causeways off Utah Beach were in American hands, key crossroads were secured, and German counterattacks that might have reached the sand had been delayed or blunted. In the days that followed, the airborne divisions kept fighting to secure the western flank of the invasion. The 82nd Airborne struggled to hold the Murderette crossings and the approaches to Sainte-Mère-Église. The 101st Airborne pushed toward Carentan, helping build the corridor that would eventually link Utah and Omaha into a continuous front. These fights were costly, but they denied the Germans clean routes for movement and helped protect the growing Allied foothold. Strategically, success behind Utah Beach helped secure the western edge of Normandy and opened the way toward Cherbourg, the deep-water port the Allies needed for sustaining operations in France. The airborne experience also shaped future doctrine. Commanders saw that dispersion was dangerous, but that trained junior leaders acting on shared intent could turn chaos into an advantage. Small groups, properly led, could disrupt a larger enemy far beyond what their numbers suggested. The American airborne drop behind Utah Beach remains more than a dramatic story of parachutes in the night. It shows how a mission can go badly off script and still succeed when soldiers understand the larger purpose. The scattered paratroopers did not create the ordered advance planners imagined, but they blocked roads, seized bridges, confused defenders, opened causeways, and helped the Utah landing move inland. One hedgerow, one village, and one crossroads at a time, they helped crack open the western edge of Fortress Europe. You can hear more narrated Headline Wednesday stories as part of the Dispatch audio editions from Dispatch U.S. Military History Magazine. For ongoing conversation and daily facts, there is a community waiting in the United States Military History Group on LinkedIn. Headline Wednesday is developed by trackpads.com as part of Dispatch U.S. Military History Magazine.